Hello, welcome back. Today I'm going to continue my series of looking at ray tracing in the latest games, and we're going to check out a medieval, or as the developers have called it, a medieval, a shooter that came out last year, now recently updated with eye-popping ray tracing effects. If you like old school retro first person shooters, I highly recommend this game as it does so many things right, from reigniting nostalgic memories of Doom, Heretic and Quake, to just being a great game with outstanding level design and gameplay. This is actually a game I'm eager to tell people about, and that doesn't come along too often. Now remember, if you haven't as yet, make sure to check out my other ray tracing videos, including Metro Exodus, Resident Evil Village, Control, and Cyberpunk 2077. And as always, if you like this video, click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and join our Discord for more gaming discussion. The first thing, as always, is to tell you about the system I played the game on and did the video capture, which I'll just leave on the screen as shown. And while we're talking about hardware, let's also talk a little bit about the performance as well. With an RTX 3070, the game can run well into the 250 frames per second without ray tracing on. Not surprising, because it's quite a low polygon style game. Adding ray tracing into the equation shakes things up quite a bit. There's two main performance hits when it comes to ray tracing: the reflections and the shadows. Both knock off about 50 to 75% of the frame rate, so what was once running at 250 to 300 frames per second can now slow to a crawl of anywhere between 20 to 40 FPS, with everything on the epic setting. Normally I try to capture ray tracing without using DLSS as long as I'm over 60 FPS, but with this game regularly down to 20 FPS, there was no way I was going to attempt to play 5 to 6 hours of this at 20 FPS. So DLSS does a great job bringing performance back up to around 60 FPS without any noticeable image quality drop. To begin, I want to talk about the ray tracing options available in the menu, which will give the visual comparisons context as I discuss them. In this game, the two most important ray tracing elements are reflections and shadows, which can be turned off independent of each other. We start off here in the first world, the Astral Equinox Selenic Stronghold, and if we turn off just the reflections, you can see that effectively the material properties of the wall and floor have changed. Effectively, ray tracing has allowed for accurate calculations of light hitting the surface rather than the developer approximating how each scene needs to look. In some ways, it's almost a cautionary check for an artist to see how light would accurately behave and bounce in the scene. With the shadows options turned off, the object holding the flame lights on the wall did not cast shadows, while with the shadows option turned on, it casts a very strong shadow. Light boost turned on is a very easy way to get some extra pop in the graphics, and this affects most lights in the scene except the sky and the sun and makes them all brighter. Similarly, Reflect Boost accentuates the reflections even further, as reflections can sometimes be quite subtle. Finally, there are two sliders here, one for screen percent reflections and shadows, which do exactly as they say and reduce the amount of reflections and shadows calculations in the scene to improve performance. Here I'm showing a rather uninteresting corridor, but what I wanted to show was that the developer can choose ray tracing effects they prefer. These two wall lamps show some reflection effects on the wall, but the standing lamp in the distance doesn't show ray trace reflections, only ray trace shadows. Perhaps they just forgot to turn on reflections. One cool thing about ray tracing is that some parts of the workflow for developers should become more streamlined. Like, for example, small objects like the sword reflect the light given off from the blue light. Of course, this could be created using standard rasterization techniques, but an artist would have to determine the look of it manually and keep it consistent. While we're here, check out the interesting shadow created with a mix of blue tinged shadow on one side and red tinged on the other. Here's a scene that shows a very different look between ray tracing on and ray tracing off. In particular, the axe behaves very differently between the two versions. This fire here doesn't create a shadow underneath the stand, much like what we saw with the wall lamp earlier, but adding ray tracing brings shadows back in. In the distance, you can see that reflections in the water have a very different look to them in this game than others. Whereas in the non-ray trace version, we get a variety of screen space reflections such as the flame and the surrounding walls on the water. The ray trace version creates a very even look that doesn't reflect the environment as much. Unlike in other games, where reflections almost mirror objects in water, in this game, water has almost no reflective property. I think part of the reason is so you can actually see underwater if there are objects to discover, such as these blue mana cubes here. In the second world, Domain of the Sentinels, Citadel of the Watchers, we see very similar ray tracing behavior to the first world. Let's take a look at this sword first, and this flashing sword's reflection is much more pronounced with ray tracing on than off, most likely helped by reflect boost and light boost. Even though the floor here is far more reflective and shiny, it doesn't mean it picks up reflections of the objects and structure like we see in other games. The statue here isn't reflected on the floor, but the box with the blue light is, indicating reflections are still selective to keep things consistent and performance high. Here are some nice colored lighting that really helps to sell that this is a really good looking retro game. One reason the game is gorgeous is the scale and the architecture, which really suits a first-person shooter looking to mimic Doom and Heretic. The size of the areas as well as the intensity of the lighting gives the game an amazing atmosphere. Here you can see very clearly what light boost does to increase the intensity of the blue light. For whatever reason, the ray tracing removed the orange light in this scene. Just like we saw with the sword at the start of the level, here we see a very bright emissive object with its reflection increased by reflect boost. Here's an interesting one where the artist plays blue light reflection in the non-ray trace version, however the ray tracing version shows a much smaller reflection. In the fourth world Solar Solstice, the Bright Pass, the ceiling tiles take on a very interesting look where in the non-ray trace version the ceiling looks to be an orange-green color and the ray trace version is a very dark green color, accentuated by the reflections and reflect boosts. Upon further inspection though, with reflections off, the walls are green tiled, so the orange glow of the light is creating a rather unique look to the game, and the reflections accentuate the dark green and shadowing. This tunnel looks completely different with ray tracing on versus ray tracing off. Finally, the fifth world, the Forge's Ruins of Rust, shows arguably the strongest ray tracing differences, accentuated by the lightning in the game. With reflect boost, this really increases the lighting off the floor and other surfaces of the game. There's not that much to say here except that it creates a brand new look and helps increase the intensity of many areas. Alright, I hope you enjoyed that look at ray tracing in a Medieval. It actually works surprisingly well on older style games because it breathes new life into something we're used to in ways I think we're not expecting. Older retro first-person shooters can look impressive still, as long as care is taken into designing well thought-out game spaces and works with the gameplay. As for the game itself, the gameplay of working your way through the level, using the level geometry and structures for combat, together with the grand architecture of the maps, helps to make it a very rewarding and fun experience to play, so I definitely recommend getting it if you have the chance to do so. That's going to be it for me for this one. If you liked the video, click the like button and subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll see you in the next one.